Hi, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. Just to go over a few quick notes before we begin, feel free to drop any questions within the chat. We'll be keeping an eye on it, and then basically at the end of the session during our Q&A, we'll cover any questions that you might have. There will also be just a couple polls as we go along that we would love for you to interact with, just so that we can kind of get some info from you all. Today, you'll hear a real-world case study from the Massachusetts College of Liberal Arts, along with insights from their partners at ERI and Cludo, who are involved in the work. With that, let's get started. So before we dive in, here's our first poll. We'd love to just get a quick read of the room. So on the screen, you'll see the question is, what's your biggest frustration with your current site search? We have a couple emojis here to kind of represent that. And in the chat, we actually already have them laid out. So if you could just put a thumbs up with what you think fits your current frustrations with your site search. I'll give you a couple seconds here to answer. Lots of thumbs. Okay, so you can keep adding to it. Those will stay in there in the chat if you kind of go back and think on it. But I see a few kind of similar pain points from people here. So we'll take a quick look at just how we're going to spend our time together today. We're going to start by setting some context around Massachusetts College of Liberal Arts, who they are, the challenges they're facing, and what prompted them to take a closer look at the website and their search experience. Then we're going to walk through the approach, how ERI led the audit and the strategy, how search fit into that broader website refresh, and what decisions were made along the way. And from there, we'll actually look at the solution itself, including a live walkthrough of the search and the AI tools. We'll share the results, lessons learned, and practical takeaways that you can apply to your own institution. We'll leave plenty of time here for questions at the end, so feel free to, like I said before, drop them in the chat. We'll check back in with it at the end of it. But I'm going to hand it over to Kristen to kick things off.
Thanks, Jess. Hi, everyone. My name is Kristen Nichols, and I'm the Chief Marketing Officer and proud alum at Massachusetts College of Liberal Arts. I joined MCLA in 2024 and had a mandate just to reimagine how we approach marketing altogether at the institution, including storytelling, digital engagement. And we all know that it's a competitive higher education landscape, and MCLA, like a lot of institutions, needed to take a look at what they were doing and shake things up. A big part of my role is making sure that prospective students, their families, and current students can actually find the information that they're looking for when they need it. And our website is often the first and most important touch point, and search quickly became a critical part of that conversation for us. And today, I'm excited to share why this project mattered so much to MCLA and what we've learned along the way. Erjan.
Thank you, Kristen. Hi, everyone. I'm Erjan Mateo, President and Chief Creative Officer of ERI. We are a digital agency that's worked in higher education for over 20 years, helping institutions align their digital presence with enrollment, engagement, and student experience goals. So ERI partnered with MCLA last year on their website refresh. This included the overall information architecture, navigation, and search strategy. So today I'm going to walk you through on how we approach the audit and design process and how search fit into the broader digital experience. So not as a standalone tool, but as a core part of how users interact with the site.
Hello again, everyone. I'm Jess Pelker, and I'm the Customer Success Manager here at Cludo. I work closely with our higher ed teams after implementation to help them get ongoing value from site search and AI by digging into analytics, identifying content gaps, making practical improvements that actually support students. My role is very much about what happens after lunch and how search evolves over time, how teams can learn to use the data to continuously improve their experience without adding a lot of work to your plate.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Kelzer, and I am a colleague of Jess's here. And I work with colleges and universities that are thinking more critically about how people experience their website. And one of the biggest shifts that we're seeing here is that search has become one of the primary entry points. Often it's the second most visited page on the site besides this homepage. And so student, parents, staff aren't really navigating menus anymore. They're going straight to the search bar and expecting quick, accurate results. So today I'll help connect that dots between strategy, implementation, and outcomes, and what we're doing with MCLA. So with that, I will pass it over to Erjan.
Thanks, Sarah. So before we jump into the case study, we want to ground today's conversation in why this matters. So across higher education, websites are no longer just informational. They're often the primary way students and families experience institutions before setting foot on campus. So at the same time, how people use websites fundamentally has changed. So users aren't navigating the way that we designed sites years ago. They're searching, and they expect immediate, clear answers. Today is about what happens when institutions take that shift seriously and treat search as a strategic part of the student experience, not as a utility in the header. So higher education websites face a real paradox. Your website is one of your most important recruitment and engagement tools, but it has also needs to serve many different audiences, such as prospective students, current students, parents, faculty, staff, alumni, and donors. And guess what? They're all looking for different things. That complexity keeps growing while user patience keeps shrinking. So people are no longer willing to hunt through the navigation, guess where content might live, and then they go straight to search and expect it to work the way it does everywhere else in their digital lives. So when that gap isn't handled well, frustration sets in quickly, and that's when institutions start losing trust and engagement. So when people can't find what they quickly need, the impact is very real. Prospective students, for instance, they'll leave. If they can't find a program or deadlines or financial aid information in just seconds, they're just going to leave. Current students and families, they'll lose confidence when basic answers are buried and outdated. And internally, poor findability also increases the burden on staff. Questions that should be answered on the website turn into emails, phone calls, and support tickets. So over time, this creates a brand erosion. A frustrating digital experience can make an institution feel disorganized and outdated, even when the academic experience itself is very strong. So the expectation gap here has changed dramatically. Today's students and families, as I said earlier, they're digital natives. They're used to fast, intuitive conversational experiences, whether that's Google, voice search, or AI-driven tools such as ChatGPT and Perplexity. So when they land on the higher education website, they bring those same expectations with them. So they expect relevant answers, relevant results, clear answers, and minimal effort. So, all right, the opportunity here is quite significant. Search doesn't have to be a pain point. When it's treated as a strategic experience, it becomes a very powerful way to support recruitment, retention, and the overall student experience. So strong search helps strong search helps users self-serve, reduce internal workload, and give institutions visibility into what people actually need, not what we assume that they're looking for. So that mindset shift from search as a utility to search as a strategic asset is what sets the stage for the MCLA story today. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Kristen to tell us a little bit about MCLA.
Yeah, thanks. So I want to set the table a little bit and ground us all in who we are at Massachusetts College of Liberal Arts, or MCLA, as we like to say. When people think of Massachusetts, they often conjure pictures of Boston or maybe Cape Cod, but MCLA is clear on the other side of the state in the beautiful Berkshire Mountains. MCLA is about 10 minutes from the Vermont and New York state lines, and we're located in a small city called North Adams. And North Adams and the Berkshires are known for arts and culture and creativity. We're a public institution, but we're kind of a square peg and a round hole. We're the state's public liberal arts college, which means we're smaller, we're more residential, and we're often described by both internal and external audiences that we feel private, even though we're public. We also serve a high number of Pell eligible students, about 40% of our incoming class. And we're proud to be ranked number 2 nationally for social mobility by US News and World Report. And we've been ranked for the past 10 years as a top 10 public liberal arts college in US News and World Report as well. So because we're smaller and we have a lean team and limited resources, and we can't rely on volume at the top of the funnel, we have to be very intentional about reaching the right fit students and supporting them once they find us so that we keep engaging with them and we don't lose them. And that's why MCLA.edu became incredibly important. And it's our digital doorstep. And it needs to meet students and families where they are and help them find what they need quickly and efficiently so they feel more confident moving forward. When I stepped into this role, one of the first things I noticed personally was how hard it was, not just for students, but me, to find information I needed on our website. So if I was struggling, students were struggling to understand what we offered as well and how to take next steps and where to go for basic information. All the content existed on our website. It was there. It just wasn't easy to find. And in some cases, it wasn't up to date. Over time, our website had become a little bit unruly, and content that had been added year after year, often without a clear owner or a process review, stayed live on the site. And we didn't have good visibility into what students were searching for, and we just didn't know where they were getting stuck or why they were getting stuck. So with my small team and small resources, we knew that wasn't sustainable, and we couldn't afford to guess what students needed. We had to find out exactly through clarity. And I often describe it as realizing that our website was an overgrown garden, and there were good things that could grow there. But without structure and weeding, as I say, or maintenance and intention, nothing was really going to flourish and grow. And that realization at the beginning of my tenure at MCLA became the catalyst for this work. We knew we needed to rethink how students experienced our website, and that meant taking search seriously as a way to understand real questions, reduce friction, and support students more effectively. So once we recognized the challenges on our website and search experience, it was clear that this wasn't something we could do on our own. We were deeply committed to improving the student experience, but we didn't have the internal capacity or specialized expertise to step back, assess the full picture, and redesign the experience thoughtfully on our own. We also knew that quick fixes wouldn't solve the underlying issue that we saw every day. This just wasn't about tweaking content and reorganizing a few pages. It was about rethinking how students find information and how the website supports them throughout their journey. So we sought out partners who could help us bring structure, strategy, and clarity to the work. And we needed an approach that was realistic for a small institution like ours and sustainable over time. This wasn't going to be a set it and forget it, and aligned with our mission and resources. So ultimately, we weren't looking for someone to deliver a solution and walk away. We needed a partnership and some partners who could help us build a process we could maintain and feel good about, one that we could continue to improve upon, and the website and search experience would improve long after launch. That was our goal. Jess, I think you've got another poll.
I do. So before we move into the audit and solution piece, just wanted to pause for another little check-in poll. So we'd love to hear, how confident are you that users can find what they need on your website? Haley actually put all those little emoji responses in the chat. So just like the first time, if you could just go through and thumbs up what you feel like kind of fits your site currently. I will give you guys a couple seconds here to go in and answer. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing. No matter where you fall on that spectrum, this is exactly the point in the journey where many institutions start taking a deeper questions about findability, governance, and long-term sustainability, which is what we're going to talk about next.
All right. So once we aligned on the challenges MCLA was experiencing, the first step was to diagnose the problem. We started with ERI's RDS methodology, which stands for Research, Discovery, and Strategy. This is a process where we met with all the stakeholders across campus, such as admission, academics, student life, advancement, communications. And the goal was to understand where users were getting stuck, what information mattered most. So what we heard was very consistent. Navigation was difficult, content had grown over time without clear ownership, and search was acting more like a black box than a solution. So people were searching, but the institution didn't have any sort of visibility into what was being asked or where users were struggling. So the audit wasn't just about identifying problems, it was about understanding the patterns, how users actually behaved, how content was structured, and where small changes could have an outsized impact. So the clarity is what allowed us to move from assumptions to informed decisions. So as part of the audit, we took a closer look at MCLA's existing navigation and search experience, which is what you see here on the screen, left and right side. The navigation had grown organically over time, which made it really hard for users to know where to go, especially first-time visitors. So search results were inconsistent, and then there was also limited ability to guide users to high value and time-sensitive content. So from a team perspective, there was very little insight into the search behavior. MCLA couldn't easily see what people were searching for, which queries were failing, or where content gaps existed. So the result was frustration of both sides. Users struggled to find answers, and the internal team had no clear way to improve the experience based on real data. So that gap became the foundation for defining what the solution needed to do differently. And with that, I want to invite Kristen to talk a little bit about why they chose Cludo.
Yeah, after ERI's audit, we looked at a few different options for search. We had some great different options to review, and some of them were really powerful. I don't want to knock any of them. They were all really good options, but some of them felt like tools that we would have to heavily manage and become experts in just to keep them running well. And given our team size, that was a non-starter. It wasn't realistic. We needed something we didn't need complexity. We needed something that helped us lift the load. So what stood out about Cludo was that it gave us visibility into what students were actually searching for while still being manageable for our small team. It wasn't just about launching a tool. It was about having a way to continuously improve what we were doing without rebuilding pages or constantly reacting to problems. So their support model, it mattered a lot to us. And we wanted a partner who would stay engaged after the launch. We didn't want somebody to say, here you go, good luck. And then we wanted someone who was going to help us interpret the data, spot content gaps, and make improvements over time. And just as importantly, the partnership between ERI, Cludo, and MCLA just felt right. We felt aligned. We weren't choosing a point solution. We were choosing an approach that fit how we worked and our overall philosophy as a small institution and how we support students across their entire journey.
So yeah, here we come in. Cludo, up to this point, we've talked about the problem and the constraints and the decision-making process. Now we want to kind of shift into the solution, which is why AI-powered search and AI chat became the right approach for MCLA. It wasn't about chasing trends or adding an AI for the sake of it. It's about responding to how students are actually searching today and designing an experience that meets those expectations in a realistic and sustainable way. So when we talk about AI-powered search, it's not just one feature, it's a system. And as Kristen said, MCLA solution came together kind of in these 5 parts. So the index is really the foundation of a well-operational search, making sure that all the content that students need to rely on is actually searchable. And we can do that across lots of different tech stacks. The UI and UX, that's where we had ERI step in, designing the search results that were easy to scan and understand so that people didn't have to do a lot of work to find the answers. Performance and analytics and support, really, they go all hand in hand. Performance is really, we have some automated tools, and then we have some manual tools that let you have control over how results are showing up. The analytics kind of prove out where things are maybe not working or working really well. It provides that feedback loop. And then our support, both with that, I'll pass it back to Erjan.
Sarah, you froze for a second. So in terms of the search experience, so one of the most visible changes was how search shows up on the site. So we treated the search bar as a primary interaction, not as a fallback. So as you can see, it's clearly surfaced and easy to access from anywhere. So this signals to users that search is reliable and it's a way to find answers they're looking for. So we also introduced voice search, as you can see here as well, which is one of the options. This supports accessibility and reflects how people increasingly interact with technology, especially on mobile. So together, this makes search feel welcoming and intuitive, and it meets users where they are instead of forcing them to adapt to the website. So this is the search results page, and this is where the experience really succeeds or fails. In the previous experience, results were difficult to scan and didn't do much to help users decide what to click. So that meant more trial and error and more frustration. So with the new search results page, the goal was clarity. So we designed the page so users can quickly understand what's relevant and what action to take next. So visual hierarchy really helps separate the different types of content. As you can see here, filters allow users to narrow results without starting over, and key information is surfaced up front so users don't have to guess which link will answer their question. So the result is a search experience that feels intentional and supportive, helping users move forward quickly instead of overwhelming them with options. So then once the strategy and the solutions were defined, we moved into the implementation phase. So our goal wasn't just to launch something new. It was to implement a new experience that would work with MCLA's real constraints, a lean team, limited time, and then the need for a long-term sustainability solution. So this phase was about turning intent into execution while keeping the experience consistent, usable, and maintainable. So implementation followed a very clear phased approach. We broke the work into manageable parts: kickoff and alignment, discovery and strategy, the design and planning, and then the development and configuration, and finally, the launch phase. So this structure really helped us ensure that each phase was built on the last rather than rushing ahead and creating rework later. So it also made it easier for the MCLA team to stay engaged without being overwhelmed. So diving into the timeline, we started with a formal kickoff to align everyone around goals, timeline, and then also ownership. From there, phase one focused on discovery and strategy. We work very closely with MCLA to understand their content ecosystem, technical environment, and the questions students and families were actually asking. So this included identifying which sites and content needed to be indexed, where were the content gaps, and then what success would look like from the user perspective. This phase ensured that we weren't designing in a vacuum. And then we get into the design and planning phase. So this is where we translated what we learned in concrete decisions. So how search results should be structured, how users would move through the experience, and then how search fit into the broader site architecture. So this phase focused on clarity and intent, making sure that the design supported real user behavior and aligned with MCLA's goals. And then we get into the development phase. So this is where the experience became real. We started building the usable templates that ensure consistency across site results, and then also supported different types of content. Templates were critical for scalability. So they allowed us for the experience to grow and evolve without requiring custom design and development each time something changed. So I want to invite Jess here to talk a little bit about the Cludo configuration phase.
Yeah. So once we had all the templates in place, we moved on to Cludo configuration. This included setting up the crawlers, tuning relevance, adding synonyms, and configuring tools that would help guide the users to the right content. This work was informed by common tools that we have with other higher ed clients here. So kind of just putting those in where we know it works, talking with MCLA to see how they wanted content to land and things like that. Kind of starting with that also is great because then as time goes on, it always allows for search to improve as we make constant changes there. So finally, MCLA launched the full site with a new search experience that was fully integrated. Rather than treating search as a standalone feature, it was rolled out as part of a larger site refresh, ensuring a cohesive experience from day one. This set MCLA up not just for launch, but for ongoing improvement moving forward. With this launch, the mobile was also updated. So mobile is often the first place that students and families interact with the college's website. So search often has to work just as well there, if not better. On mobile, the search experience, as you can see, is streamlined and easy to see with the same access to filtering and clear results without overwhelming their screen. AI summary plays an important role here, just like it does with the site search. Instead of forcing users to open multiple pages, it gives quick context right to the results, summarizing the most relevant information while still providing clear links back to the source content. This helps users make faster decisions, reduces unnecessary clicks, and keeps the experience efficient, especially on smaller screens. So, in addition to search and the AI summaries, MCLA also introduced an AI chatbot as another way that users can find information on their site. The chatbot is designed for people who prefer to ask questions conversationally, so like especially students and parents who may not know the right terminology to search for. This kind of bridges that gap. What's especially important here is that the chatbot isn't replacing search or staff. It's grounded entirely in MCLA's content and works alongside the search experience, guiding users to accurate source-based answers, as you can see on the little image. When the chatbot can't confidently answer a question, that's also actually valuable insight. It highlights content gaps or areas where the website needs clarification, which feeds back into improvements across the site. Used this way, AI chat becomes another listening tool, helping the institution better understand user needs while reducing the friction for common questions. And I'm going to pass it over to Sarah now to provide a live demo.
All right, so we're going to shift to a short live demo to show how the works behind the scenes, and I'll walk through 7 real examples from MCLA's search and AI analytics and show how those insights turn directly into the configuration changes inside of my Cludo. So we will share my screen now. All right. So what we have here is the entry point into my Cludo. It's our dashboard, and it shows really quickly what's working, how much search is going on. You can change up the filters for a specific time range. And then one thing I'd like to point out here is that we have a couple like quick action items. So searches without results and ineffective searches. So right here, we can see Grammarly is misspelled. And what you can do in this example is you can test the search right from the dashboard, and then you can see what results are showing up. And then you can also make action items from here. So if you want to add in this as a misspelling and then say what the correct spelling is, we can make that decision in real time. All right. The other examples I like to show is in our analytics all searches. There's lots of ways to use this area, and I'm going to take us back to the whole month of January and just show you that a lot of times the popular searches are going to still live within that 1 to 2 keyword. For MCLA in January, we did find that 70% of searches are still in that like precise keyword searches. So that for them was about 1,500 searches in total. And as you can see from this, all searches, they all have these little letters behind them. For Cludo, those are our search tooling. So you can at a glance see if you've addressed that with some manual tools. The first one here is employment. What I've done here is I've addressed this one in 2 ways. One is that employment could mean a few different things for students, faculty, and job seekers. It could mean they want to find a job, they want to look at career services, or they want to maybe have a student work opportunity. So I've used PageRanking to address those. And so we'll go over into our tooling area. PageRanking. And so we have employment with the different search terms. Anything with the asterisk captures the variety of keywords that could be used before or after. And so then we set up the PageRanking that way. And then because the job board couldn't be crawled at the time, we have this stopgap with a banner. And this is at the top of search results. It just links to this external site that we can not inhibit visitors from finding the job board, so they can still get the information. If we go back now to all searches, another thing I like to take a look at is the long tail queries. Oftentimes they'll start with like a question like what or how. So you can see quickly these searches are longer than 1 to 2 keywords. For MCLA, that was about 30% of their search volume in January that ended up being over 3 keywords. They had about 600 searches in January. And then anything over 5 keywords, that was about 3% of their search volume. So we're moving in the direction of having it be more conversational on their search. And it's not necessarily a tool that you have to configure, but something worth mentioning is that behind the scenes, Cludo is doing some heavy lifting for you. At the engine level, we have something called AI Search, which blends both keyword and vector search databases. So it's really great for those keyword precise searches, but then also those natural, more conversational, long tail queries with the vector search. So we're going to stay, I think, one more time within all searches for an example. This one is a little bit different. It's in that your end visitors are searching for a lot of the same type of intent, but with different words. So one of the top things students are going to want to know and parents are going to want to know is how much is this going to cost me? So if I put in tuition here within their January, we can see there's 20 different varieties of ways that people ask for tuition. We put in cost. We can see 12 different searches with cost in it. Fee, we see 7 different. And really what this is telling us is that a lot of times outcome, they want the same, but they're asking it different ways. So one way that we can address this is with our page rankings again. We also have synonyms too. So that's more of a blanket, like synonyms that we should match up. But if you want something that's very important, like the cost to always show up the same, here we have cost with, again, the asterisks to capture any words before or any after, same with fee and tuition. And then we have the cost of attendance pinned at the top of the search results. And what I will say about this too is if people are searching for more of those niche, like I want to know what dorm costs are, or apartment or housing or dining fees, we'll pin this at the top, but the search results will still pull in things that are related to that more specific search. So it'll still be in the top results. Now we will switch to our AI summary feedback. This is gold because we do have a thumbs up, thumbs down, and a way for the end users to say why it's not working and then give a comment. So even, what am I getting? So in January, we did have, and this is the end of January, we did have this question of when is commencement that was in the regular search bar. And what came up was the 2025 commencement from last year. It's kind of telling us two things here. One is how in advance students are looking for content. There's also a search in December that was for violin repair workshop, and that was in the summer work class. So people are searching for content like 6 months in advance. So that's one thing to note here. And then the other thing, we do have already the content is already ranking top here. So this has been resolved. But another thing that we have within Cludo is called AI canned responses. It can be used in multiple different ways. One would be for more like legalese or things that you need to statically always be the same. But this one could be a stopgap as well. So if people are looking for commencement, but you're not ready to release the save the date, you could put in a message here that says, hey, we're not ready to announce it, but you can sign up for our newsletter or whatever it may be to get the announcement when it's ready. Then we also have really great, very similar analytics in AI chat. People are using AI chat a little bit differently. We have unanswered questions. And I feel like this again is gold. It's people are looking for certain content in their own language and own verbiage, and we're not coming up with an answer. So it could be something that we're not either indexing, or it's not ranking properly, or it's just missing content altogether. So if I sort this here, one of the ones that is really great is what programs are available for music lovers. And I think this is kind of one of those examples where websites are showing academic speak or program level language, but we can address this with our search rankings, again, with putting in the asterisks around music and ranking MCLA as programs related to music. So how that looks again is we've got the music, and then we've got 2 programs ranking top for that. And then I have one more example, and I'll show you the front end as well. So going back into our analytics, AI chat, and going into feedback, negative. This is actually part of when we first went live. And so this is something interesting just as we implement any search or any AI chat moving forward. Some of these were blank because we just weren't indexing the content, and it did live out there. So the 2 examples here we got are where are printer locations around campus. This just happened to live on a subdomain that was on techhelp.mcla. So we just need to make sure that that was set up in crawlers. Also study rooms across campus. This was also on their libcal. So with Cludo, you have unlimited crawlers to set up. They're really easy to get going. Probably one of our strongest suits here at Cludo. You just enter in the URL, and then it will find any folders, directories that live outside of that. So here we have indexed the libcal, and then just to double down and make sure that it was operating, I did set up also a page ranking for the room. And how our AI works, and maybe the foundation that I should have started off with, is that the top 5 results are what we're using in that AI generated response. So that's why we need to have it in top results. So how this looks on the front end is, 1 second here. I don't know if I can do that. MCLA. You know what? I cannot show you that without moving to a different browser. So let me do unshare, and I'll share that again. So here we have that study rooms across campus. If I am to search for it, we can see how the AI summary generates. And it feels really fast because we're streaming. And then within here, we have the in-text citations. So it's showing you where it's pulling the answer from. And way of demonstration, here's the thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs down. You can put in your answer and the comment. So you get that feedback loop right there. And so with that, I will pass it over to Kristen. She'll have some outcomes for us.
Yeah, thanks. Something unexpected, but a great example of how this actually works popped up a few weeks ago when we had a major snowstorm. We're having a true New England winter this year, and the entire region was slammed with a storm that dumped nearly 2 feet of snow across the region. So, when that happens, even it's schools in the mountains have to close and have a snow day. So we had a snow day and then a delayed start the following day so that our students and our community could stay safe while we cleared campus. So we started seeing repeated questions about on AI through search and AI chat about how we made decisions around campus closures and who decides when campus gets closed and what is the process for closing campus and how do those decisions get communicated. I had no idea that people wanted to know all of this information, but here we are. They clearly did. And instead of answering those one-off, or letting it live live in an email or on a social post, my colleague Keith decided to create an inclement weather FAQ document and page that lives on our site that clearly explains the decision-making process, the chain of communication, the ways you can find out about weather closures on campus. And what we do is when we have a closure or a delay on campus and we have that banner up on our main MCLA.edu homepage, it links to that inclement weather page so that you can learn more information. And that page now answers real recurring questions, and it came directly from listening to what people were asking for on our search tool and not from guessing what we thought they needed. So surprise for all of us, but it's a great thing to add. So we want to just close by sharing a few early results. So we are still early in this partnership, but I'm pleased and it's going very well. So just taking a look at December, the click-through rate from search was about 54.7%. So by January, that increased to 63%. So representing a 15.2% improvement in the click-through. At the same time, overall search volume increased from 2,600 searches in December to 3,100 in January. So a 19.2% or nearly 20% increase. But what's important here is that these two things were in tandem and improved together. As more people use search, they were also finding what they needed more often. And that was the goal. That was what we wanted to see happen. And to see it happen so quickly was just a wonderful celebratory thing for our team. And it tells us that experience is becoming more trusted and more effective and not just more heavily used. It's a strong early indicator that search is doing its job. It's guiding users to the right information and giving quickly and giving them confidence. So this is one of the clearest examples of why we think AI, we think of AI as a learning system. In December, many questions went unanswered, and we knew that was, that validated something we knew. And it wasn't because AI failed, but because the content needed to be clarified or created. So in January, at the start of the year, after responding to all those insights, and unanswered questions dropped, the unanswered questions dropped by nearly 57% in 1 month. And that improvement did not require rebuild. It came from listening and doing some refinements of the content and just doing some small adjustments of configuration over time.
Okay, so with that, let's dive into our panel discussion and get some insights straight from the sources here with Kristen, Erjan, and Sarah. So we'll start with Kristen. What advice would you give another CMO considering a project like this?
Yeah, I mean, the way we approached it is just to, go on your site and see what the issues are and how if people are aborting your search and going to Google because they can't find what they need, well, that's, if people internally are doing that, and that's what I was doing, I could not find what I needed through the search on our site, and I kept going to Google. And then when I would go to Google, I wouldn't necessarily get what I was looking for, and I'd find something that was erroneous. So just kind of do a self-audit before you partner with anyone, just to say identify the challenges and the stress points. Because if you're having them as a CMO or as a leader in an institution, imagine the prospective family, the first generation family, the 18-year-old student. They're going to be amplified because they're going to have bigger challenges. So it was really just taking a step back and looking at our governance and seeing what type of governance did we have in place? Was it sound? Who are the stakeholders across the web? And really just taking a look at our overall web ecosystem and how it was structured, and if it was structured well for modern search users.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Erjan, what would you wish more institutions understood about site search?
Yeah, great question. So tools such as Cludo are excellent, and they do a really great job at solving the problems that we're after in terms of search. It's important that institutions, if they do decide to implement a solution such as Cludo, to designate a champion for the tool, someone that's going to lead, someone that's going to monitor the tool on a daily basis and communicate their findings with the different stakeholders around campus. So some campuses are centralized, some are more decentralized. So having someone internally that's going to champion the tool and communicate those content gap issues, let them know when there are opportunities for improvement with content and things like that, is going to be really key to the success of this tool.
Wonderful. Sarah, what makes a search implementation successful versus one that would fall flat?
I kind of alluded to this while I was doing the demo, but there's a few areas that we missed as far as indexing goes. So just doing an audit before going live of where all those digital properties live and where content and answers live to make sure that they're indexed. And then before you go live, you can do some preemptive, just popular searches, those variation searches, those synonyms, those long tail queries, and making sure that the results that you expect are showing in the up in those top 5 results. But I just want to also thank Kristen. Thank you so much for doing this. All the results that you saw and shared with the community here today is so helpful.
Oh, no, it's been a wonderful partnership, and thank you for everyone who has joined us today. And, we encouraged, I just want to state, when we launched the refresh of MCLA.edu with the AI search from Cludo embedded, we sent a message to the campus community to celebrate this launch. And we encouraged them to try the AI search and use the thumbs up and thumbs down to help us. We said, we need your help. So go in there and start typing things and thumbs up or thumbs down things. And that has really been a great feature for us to figure out what we need to tackle first. And Keith is a wonderful colleague of mine who's been the champion for us. So I want to give a shout out because he's been doing all of the lift here.
Hey, Keith.
Lovely.
Yeah. Oh, there's some questions coming in.
Yeah. So, just like Matt did, throw any questions you guys have for any of us here in the chat. We'll be able to answer them.
Yeah. So Matt, there's no integration with Slate, Matt. I see you're asking that, but like we are making sure that we are cross-pollinating. We don't have a clear integration right now, but we are making sure that that's a cross-pollination, that we are working with our stakeholders in admissions to make sure that we are utilizing all of this appropriately and cross-pollinating as much as possible to keep people engaged on MCLA.edu. We want them there, and we want them there for a long time. So we're constantly making sure that Slate's referencing things that we've implemented on the site.
I know that there was an unproven thing too, where maybe we could use our analytics to push into Slate. But yeah, it definitely depends on the integration that you're talking about with Slate. If it's more about getting analytics into Slate or using the analytics from Slate to personalize results, or if it's more something else.
Yeah.
All right. So were there any other questions before we dive into next steps? Not seeing any other ones.
Okay.
All right. So if what you saw today resonates and you're thinking about how this could apply to your institution, there are two easy ways to continue the conversation. If you are looking at a broader website strategy, governance, or user experience, ERI can walk through how to evaluate your current state and identify opportunities for improvement.
And then if you scan the QR code for Cludo, that brings you to our form to set up a demo site. We can actually do a site search and AI summary, AI chat with the content on the back end from your site. So feel free to submit that, and I'll be happy to set that up for you.
Also, I want to take this opportunity to invite you to our next webinar on March 12th, which is about how what you should be doing before you redesign your institution's website. Our VP and Chief Strategy Officer, Rafi Dersimonian, will be leading it, and we hope to see you there. You can scan the QR code below, and that will get you to the registration page. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kristen. Thanks, Jess and Erjan.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thanks for spending time with us today. Thank you, Kristen, from MCLA, for sharing your story. That's lovely. We really appreciate all the work that was done and the support that you're providing your students and parents with all of this cool new site. If any of you have any follow-up questions, like everyone's kind of said before, want to just continue chatting with us, don't hesitate to reach out. We're all here. We'd love to stay connected.
Hearts. All right, bye.
Bye.